Okay. My name is Ann McDermott. Today is September 24th, 2002. I worked in the World Trade Center in Tower 2. Our offices, I worked for Sun Microsystems. I work for Sun Microsystems. We were on 24 and 25. I was not there on September 11th, but was planning to go in. A friend of mine called me. I was going to go in at 10 o'clock that morning. And I got a phone call. I woke up at about 9, and I got a phone call from a friend of mine, and she said, "Oh, I heard what happened at the World Trade Center." And I thought it was a sales rep that I was dealing with on something, and I was kind of annoyed. I'm like, "Oh, he's calling me so early in the morning, whatever." And so she said, and I turned on the television, and there was what I thought was a movie, but was actually the plane going into the building that I worked in. I turned on the TV just after the plane had hit Tower 2, and they were replaying it. It was 9/11 actually when I looked over at the clock. So I immediately started calling people at the office. I called my boss, and I called several other people, and I was able to leave messages on the machine for people, but nobody obviously got back to me. Then I tried calling again after the towers had fallen down, and what happened? I couldn't leave a message. I think I got a busy signal. So there were 346 employees for Sun Microsystems who worked in the World Trade Center, and about half of them were there at the time of the crash. There was one employee we were a large multinational company. There was one employee who was flying from Boston to New York on Flight 11. His name was Philip Rosenzweig, and he was killed in Tower 1 because he was on the plane that hit Tower 1. He was going to Los Angeles from Boston. So then, obviously, I panicked. As I sat there and I watched on TV, and I saw a lot of things happening. And when I saw Tower 2 fall down, I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and I just freaked out. And I emailed our CEO. His name is Scott McNeely, and he emailed me back and said, "You need to stay calm for all of us." It was very very nice of him. He's a very nice gentleman. So how did we get back to business? Well, we were all basically in shock. About like as I said, half the people were in the building and had to evacuate. Our mailroom guy, he runs our mailroom. He actually works for Xerox. His name was Abel Villanueva. Evacuated everybody. Our offices were set up. We had like sort of a hotel kind of office. We do what's called flexible field office. And he ran up and down the aisles, knocking on doors, and actually hanging the phone up on people, because our mailroom was on the north side of the tower, of Tower 2. And he looked up and he thought there was just some big explosion in Tower 1, but he knew that Tower 1 was going to come down instinctively. So he spent the next 15 minutes. We had an overhead speaker. He made several announcements, walked around twice on both floors. So there were 10 rows on either side, so that means 40 times twice. And he hung up the phone, as I said, and got people out. And he told me that when he got outside, he saw some pretty gruesome stuff. He was the last one out that he knew of, actually, and he went into the staircase, which would have been on the north side of Tower 2, and as he was going down, the second plane hit as he was on floor 19. And he said the staircases went one to the other, and he's sort of like, up, then, oh, jeez. Well, whatever, they had a landing, right? Oh, that's it. They went like that. They had a landing. And he said that when the plane hit, they kind of went like that. Like they cracked open and went like that. And he had to jump over a hole where you could see down to get down. So we basically I phoned everybody that I knew from Sun, and the next day there was a conference call. I work in the financial services group, but there was a conference call with a group that's in media, and basically we just connected with each other and found out where everybody was, and luckily we had not lost anybody from falling debris or the explosion that had happened. There was one guy I know who was still in the office after the plane hit, and when he came out, he went to the elevator to take the elevator down, and the door was blown out. We were on the 25th floor, and so he got in the stairs and got out. He was the last Sun employee to get out. He was on 26. Abel was on 25. We then, basically, we were kind of all sort of disheveled for the next couple weeks. We had a product launch on September 25th. Scott McNeely came, and he was going. They were actually going to reschedule that for California, but he heard Mayor Giuliani say on TV, please don't abandon New York. If you're going to do business in New York, please come and do the business in New York. And we had this product launch up at a theater on Broadway, and it was so wonderful. The first time we all saw each other, we were just thrilled. I can't really explain the feeling of, you thought people were hurt, you thought they were injured, and they were fine. And Sun had set up several sort of counseling things that we had, some of us, like department by department, had gone to, which were very, very helpful. But I live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and didn't really leave the Upper East Side that day. I rode my bike down the next day, down the West Side Highway, just to because it was so surreal. You just couldn't believe that this had happened. And there's this beautiful bike path up and down the West Side of Manhattan, and I had really enjoyed that summer. And as I was riding down, it was after 59th Street that they stopped the traffic, and I saw trucks. There were these garbage trucks coming up the West Side Highway. They had blocked off the entire West Side Highway, and these garbage trucks were full of the World Trade Center, and they were going to the dump on 60th Street, and you could see, beams and things coming out. And so as you rode down the West Side Highway, you would just get closer and closer to the smell, to the smoke, to the chaos. And there were several things that I saw. I saw convoys of trucks that obviously they had prepared. The Mayor's Office of Emergency Management had really prepared. There was a convoy of trucks that came down 34th Street in a line past the Javits Center and the Empire State Building in the background. And those were trucks that I think were they were refrigerator trucks. So I think they were thinking they were going to use them for things that needed to be refrigerated. And then there were also convoys of dump trucks and convoys of bulldozers and convoys of different things going down the West Side Highway. And the furthest you could go on your bicycle was Houston Street. And you could see from Houston Street, which is about a mile away, and I'm actually working in that building right now, you could see the big cloud of smoke and everything that was going on. It was pretty scary. And I was supposed to go that day, September 11th, down to 15 Broad Street to do an assignment with a bank that I was working with, and obviously that didn't happen. The following, but we did actually get back to work 2 weeks later. We all started, Wall Street opened up again, and you were able to get in. And so I worked in Lower Manhattan until December. Had to go down there every day, get on the number 4 train, smell the smell, which was pretty horrible. You just didn't know what the smell was, and you just everybody was just so focused on getting back to normal or trying to get back to normal that it was just kind of unnerving. But I do remember one incident where I was sitting there in a conference room at a meeting about 3 weeks after the incident, and we were all sort of just kind of, okay, we're going to get back to normal, we're going to do business. And I was looking at the windows, and the windows were kind of dirty. And I remember looking at the schmutz on the window and saying to myself, gee, what's the composition of that schmutz? And that's when it hit me that Lower Manhattan had been turned into Auschwitz, sort of, kind of. And it really freaked me out. So for 2 or 3 days, I wasn't able to go back downtown. But then I finally, I just kind of had to table it, put it behind me. And it was pretty gruesome in Lower Manhattan until, I'd say, April of this year, March or April, I would go down, get off at Fulton Street, because the client I was going to was not too far from there, and look behind you, and there was the burnt out shell of 5 World Trade Center. It was just, yeah, pretty scary. But any case, things have sort of gotten back to normal now that the things are cleared out and the Winter Garden is back in business. I started an assignment at a financial company down there in April, and I would ride the van down to Financial Center, and the Winter Garden was just basically a shambles. And week by week by week, the Winter Garden has gotten better and is back, and it's just so wonderful to see the trees back in the Winter Garden. The palm trees are back. And we're very, very glad that the anniversary is over and that we can sort of get back to normal now. But certainly, I think September 11th, I attended 2 funerals for firefighters. One was because I just felt like I needed to go to thank the families, because these men had run into the building that I worked in to save my life. If I had been there, they would have been trying to save my life. Michael Quilty, he was lieutenant with Fire Engine Company 11 over in East Village. I went to that was out in Staten Island in October, or maybe it was end of September. And then I found out a few days later that a friend of mine's son-in-law, who was a battalion chief, had passed away, and I went to that funeral. I was going to go to more, but once you've gone to a couple of them, they were pretty difficult, because the firefighters really know how to say goodbye. In any case, my neighborhood, the Upper East Side, there were just lots and lots of people with dust all over them going up the street that day. It was the most surreal day any of us ever experienced, and hope we never have to experience it again. So, thank you for listening.